Some languages are so confusing, they will make your brain do triple backward somersaults. I'm talking shape-shifting verbs, sounds you've never even heard before, and all kinds of tricks that will make you question the idea of what a language is. There are 7 confusing languages in particular that you should know about, and if nothing else, they're guaranteed to make for good trivia at your next dinner party.
I'm sorry, what?
That's so cool! This is the coolest language. Cyflwyno'r aglenni'r Gymraeg a Saesneg nawr. Sa'n credu fydden ni wedi mentro mewn i'r busnes yma, sef ddim am yr iaith, felly mae wedi bod o fydd I fi.
Listen, we've got a real fantastical world going on with Welsh, and if you ever see a dragon and think, but it speaks Welsh, well, you might be onto something. Try to read this easy word out loud. Go on. Welsh is a Celtic language, one of the oldest languages in Europe. It's been evolving for 4,000 years. Very poetic and beautiful, but easy to figure out? I think not.
I started a course 2 years ago. 30 people started that course. 1 bloke passed. 1 passed, 3 failed, and 26 dead. 26 people died trying to learn Welsh. There's 1 bloke choked and swallowed his tongue, the poor sod.
You seen this word? Okay, we get it. Someone fell asleep on the keyboard, didn't they? But it begs the question, can anyone actually say it right?
A long time ago, I was actually there. It's like a pretty typical Welsh town. It was a really pretty place.
Land well, like, when... Does anyone know how to say this?
Clan fair, Pikachu, Rover, Willia, Celia, go, goach.
So the obvious problem appears to be more than a few missing vowels. Well, maybe they're hiding in plain sight. But we have bigger worries. Welsh nouns have genders, but good luck guessing them. There are no obvious markers like in Spanish or French. So unfortunately, there's no way to tell which is which, except in a dictionary.
It's hard to really explain how to make it. Just experiment and don't make it too harsh. So it's not, ow.
Now, try to picture this. A Welsh sentence goes verb, subject, object, and the noun comes before the adjective most of the time. So, I like the white cat is like the cat white am I. You're not Yoda. Good luck making sentences is all I'm going to say. Plurals are also not easy. You can't just add an S like in English. Sometimes you change the middle of the word, sometimes the middle and the end of the word, but you might replace the ending or add an ending. Stop me when you figure out the pattern here. And a lot of plurals are shorter words than the singular. Some nouns even have 2 plural forms or just break all the rules completely. Basically, it's completely different from English, and as a beginner Welsh learner, you can't tell.
They ask me to say something in Welsh, and then immediately I forget every single word of Welsh. A language that I normally speak better than my English.
Often the vowel changes too. Little clue there, but you haven't heard the most confusing thing of all. Ask any Welsh learner what makes their brain spin, and it'll be this.
Mam, fam, but mab, mab. Dim treglo. Cath, a gath, but cath, a chath.
I'll explain. You know how some languages have these things called case endings? Well, Welsh does this backwards. The change comes on the front end. You seeing this killer dragon? They call it a consonant mutation, and there are 3 kinds.
Fymrawd, not vybrawd. Why do we do this? Basically because it flows better, it sounds better.
So glad she cleared that one up, aren't you?
Cath, cat, but we'd say mae'r gath yn goch instead of mae'r cath yn coch. Mae'r gath yn goch.
Needless to say, it can be difficult to find words in dictionaries. You first have to know the mutations, otherwise you'll be searching for F words under F when they're really under B. Now, about those missing vowels, I didn't forget. Great news, turns out W and Y are both vowels in Welsh. Problem solved. Now, go back and try and pronounce those words again. And me, well, when I hear Welsh singing, that's all the convincing that I need. Of course, real Welsh people speak in contractions, and did I mention that there are 5 distinct dialects? No, I didn't, but at least we've got a book of short stories in Welsh, so if you do want to try and learn, well, that might help you. Link in the description.
Co máte na létě nejradši?
Wow, tak já asi to, že člověk může být venku, sportovat, hodně posedávat po venku večer a je to takový hezký kor v Praze, třeba na Letné.
Now the internet told me that it's statistically more likely to be struck by lightning than to meet an English person who speaks Czech fluently. It is that rare because it is that confusing to learn. It all starts off really cool and fun, like, how you say hello.
Ahoj. Ahoy, ahoy, ahoy. Yes, we're pirates. Why do you ask?
I love it already. Also, the spelling is about as close as you'll get to easy, and that's because it's consistent. Some of the time.
Na zdraví. Na zdraví.
But then the problems begin. First off, Czech is a Slavic language, so the grammar is insane when compared with English, and it all starts with the sounds and spelling.
333 stříbrný stříkaček stříkalo přes 333 stříbrný střech.
Also, the Czech Republic is the only country that has this extraordinary letter.
We have ž and r and ch and ň, j, ch. I remember being little and my uncle always making fun of me because I could never say tři, which means in Czech 3.
It's a very rich and nuanced vocabulary, and when you practice actually talking, what's undeniably difficult is the stress. Not your stress, I mean the pronunciation stress. It's confusing. See, stress is always on the first syllable, so a Czech sentence gets a special and unique rhythm.
Hovory s Čechy v Praze, ale i v jiných městech. Takže pokud se učíte česky, videa vám ukážou, jak spolu komunikují Češi v každodenním životě.
Nice, huh? But then you bump into 3 genders, and while in English a woman is a woman, in Czech a woman is all of these things because of all the 7 cases. You also have to know if a thing is living or non-living, but it only matters with masculine nouns. You see, in Czech this works like a sub-gender. Say you have a bunch of masculine nouns like these. 2 of those are not alive, we hope, so they might get different case endings to the others. To make it worse, animacy, this concept, is not even literal. So plants and insects are non-living. A snowman and the deceased are living, and a robot is up for debate. And they still have to match the verbs with some missing rules. I could list all the verb things, but we won't have time here. Let's just say I think Czech verbs wake up each morning wondering, who am I going to agree with today? I mean, it has nothing on the hardest language coming up later in this list, but my God, the drama. But okay, surely a simple conversation is straightforward, right? Well, I'm glad you asked.
One of the most difficult things that I think makes the Czech language so hard is that there's essentially 2 different ways of speaking. There's informal, tykání, and formal, vykání.
And how about those triple negatives? You heard me. Hold on, I'm counting 4? Let's just say in Czech, making a sentence negative often has nothing to do with logic, and there are a lot of ways to say the exact same thing. Now, Czech might not be logical, but here's something that is logical. It's liking this video and subscribing to the channel so that we can keep meeting like this, you and I. Your support counts in a huge way, and I really appreciate it.
Tehát az lenne a kérdésem, hogy mit tesz téged boldoggá?
Hát a barátaim, a barátnőm, aki otthon vár, meg úgy a családom, mindenki, aki szeret és positív érzelmeket táplál irántam.
If you fancy the idea of finding your way out of a labyrinth, you're going to like the confusion of Hungarian. 44 letters, and this is just one of them. It's a Uralic language, and that's where the trouble begins. You see, it's nothing at all like its neighbours. And just when you think you've beat the maze, you hit another endless passage. My friend, you are going to need a sense of humour for this.
Iránytű.
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 Cipőfűző.
Kipofúzó. Kipofúzó. And now in French, kipofúzó.
Now for starters, Hungarian is agglutinative, one of my favourite words, which means you can stack smaller words and end up with these ridiculously long words full of consonants clustered together like that, again with those missing vowels. And the meanings get hilariously specific. Are you allowed to breathe? I honestly don't know. Like Formula 1 driving, Hungarian is all about precision. Yep, here come the noun cases. The grand total of 18 of them. What do 18 cases look like? Well, they look a little bit like this. So you want to talk about animals, let's make it a cow. A Hungarian cow can be any of these words, depending on what this cow is up to. Actually, one case ending is super rare and you wouldn't normally use it for a cow, but if someone calls you a cow, it's allowed. As a cow, I have to say, let's keep the mooing on the farm. Comebacks aside, you've got to learn all of these cases. And then there's vowel harmony.
There is no difference concerning the pronunciation, only the rhythm is different, because the first Ö is short and the second Ö is long. Ö, Ö.
Basically, it's a vowel matching game. A word typically uses either all front vowels or all back vowels, and the suffixes added to the word must match them. Did you count 14 vowel sounds altogether? Well, good for you. So you'll make mistakes constantly then. Come on, what do you think? But the real nightmare in Hungarian is conjugation. Wait for it. A single verb can have more than 70 variations. And even if you do something occasionally or in small amounts, the verb will change for that precise meaning. And the choice between definite and indefinite forms can subtly change the nuance of a sentence. And after all that, you still have to think of intricate politeness levels to rival Japanese or Korean. All I can say is Hungarian is a fascinating language. You're going to need a significant memory load to master the different forms and rules and walk out of the maze. But is it worth it? Well, for the feather in your cap, yes it is. Maybe you should just try the next language. What's it going to be?
Himinninn var nánast svartur, en snjórinn virtist blátindrandi í tunglskininu. Hafið lá sofandi undir ísnum og djúpt ofan í jörðinni dreymdi smádýrin öllum vorið. En það var langt þangað til, því þetta var rétt eftir 9 ár.
Icelandic is fascinating. Pure beauty, ancient and isolated, full of archaic words, unique. What's really amazing is that it's the closest language to what's called Old Norse, which is the Scandinavian language that the Vikings spoke. Remember them? Which is wonderful and horribly mispronounced by humans.
It's like a tiny pet peeve that I have when they say like Odin and Thor. Like it probably sounds really cool for the Americans, but for me it's just like low-key or Loki.
Now, it's not your fault. There are no loan words to help you at all, but you've got to love the direct link to the longboat sagas, don't you? And how cool are these leftover Old Norse letters? The alphabet hides some very rare sounds that don't exist in English. Come on, try this one out.
Heimdall is heimdallur. Heimdallur. The double L in Icelandic sound k, so heimdallur.
Nailed it, did you? Okay, now put it in this word.
Eyjafjallajökull.
By huge clouds of ash shot into the air by Iceland's, I hope I'm saying this right, volcano.
Nice try. Can we get some real Icelanders in, please?
So it's like this. Eyjafjallajökull. Eyjafjallajökull.
It's a new one for me, and they even have some bizarre voiceless sounds, I believe.
Icelandic has an unvoiced N, or a voiceless N. And you can try this. You make the N sound and then you turn off your vocal cords It's basically just breathing through your nose.
So learning Icelandic words is daunting, but it's hard not to love them. They're so descriptive. It's really quite addictive.
Fagradalsfjall.
Þráskjaldahraun.
Keilir.
Þorbjörn.
The longest Icelandic word is Vaðalaheiðar vegavinnu verkfæra geimsluskór likla kipurhringurinn.
Forget the long words. Even with short ones, there are so many different word endings to learn. What's your favorite color? You say blue? Sorry, man, you can't just learn the word for blue because all of these are blue and you have to pick the right one. Why? Well, to compete with Hungarian, obviously. Icelandic nouns can be a nightmare at first. We're talking 4 noun cases, each with their own subclasses, and 3 genders, each with strong and weak options. And the numbers. How many ways can you say the number 2? Because guess what? There are cases for numbers and even cases for names, though I don't know what's going on with Anna. Inconsistent much? More confusing rules to learn. Sentence order goes subject, verb, object, just like English, but then they go and give you freedom with that as well. So good luck with reading, although actually with this book it's quite fun to read Icelandic. I'll link in the description. And here is a fun struggle. Icelandic adjective endings can be a real pain. Unlike English, Icelandic uses strong and weak verb conjugations as well as strong and weak adjectives. Strong and weak adjectives? That's right, it's a bit like Old English. See, Icelandic is chock full of wonderfully weird extras. If you want to talk about the future, you have to kind of hint at it. And this one's a real curveball. Ever heard of middle voice? I know you've heard of Middle Earth, I'm not talking about that. Middle voice isn't your typical active or passive voice, but it's a very Icelandic mix of both. Say, the window opens. Do you know who opened it? Well, not me, but someone knows it opened, and that is called middle voice. Confused yet? Well, stranger things are on the way. By the way, if you like strange and mysterious stories and you think it might be fun to learn a language through story, you should check out StoryLearning right here, because that's exactly what we do. We've taught tens of thousands of students a new language using stories, because we've figured out that stories tend to clear up all the confusion because you learn naturally. You don't have to rely on your brain to memorize all these silly rules. So the language finally sticks in your head. It really works, and you really do learn faster this way and with less stress. If you're keen to see how StoryLearning works, you can get a free tour of the StoryLearning method. Just look for my StoryLearning kit in the video description below, completely free. There's a link to click, that'll take you to the right place.
Euskal Amerikar askoagoz eta geure alkarteak dekoz berorrek zoratzen
Ever been to the far north of Spain, near the French border? Well, that's called Basque country. Wonderful place. And the best thing about Basque is that there's no other language like it on earth. It's what's called a language isolate, the last remaining descendant of a language of prehistoric Europe. Some of its words are from the Stone Age. I'm not kidding. So even if you've already learned 11 languages, they won't help here. Learning to speak Basque, well, it's pretty exciting.
Argument. It's a baida. Where does that come from? Es and by, no and yes. That is amazing.
You know what I really love? All the X's. I mean, seriously, I've never seen a language with so many X's and Z's. It's pretty cool like that. They're just messing with you, though. The X's, they're not even the hard part.
Hola garro eta potarrenska chichi uruntia.
How do you say hello? A really common cutesy way of saying hello in the Basque country these days is kaixo. Kaixo.
Like Hungarian, it's agglutinative, so you can build lots of words, lots of long words like that. Everything from funny-looking suffixes to long words. Basque has 14 noun cases. Trying to steal someone's thunder there, are we? But then it makes all of its own rules.
The grammar is Silada. It's a bit unusual and it's nothing like we're used to.
By now, weird sentence order is not going to shock you, but get this. Basque uses something very rare in languages. It's called ergative-absolutive alignment. Yeah. And what on earth is this? Is it a Star Trek reference or something? No, it's a fancy way of saying that the subject of a sentence can have two possible forms depending on whether they are doing the action or it's happening to them. So here's a guy reading a book. He's doing the action, so his name gets a K added on. Strange, right? The point? Well, even if you only hear part of the sentence, you'll know that this dude is doing something. I know, it's weirdly clever. Seems like quite an alien way to speak, but it's just another day in the land of Basque.
Euskera ez da nire ama, niba naiz bere alaba.
Okay, now remember what an auxiliary verb is? You might remember this from school. Tiny little thing, usually. Just wait though, Basque auxiliaries are not tiny. They're extremely powerful. In Basque, the helper verb changes based on who is doing the action, who is affected by it, and for whom it's being done. One little auxiliary verb encoding all those details is quite remarkable. And it agrees with the subject, the object, and even the indirect object. So yes, verbs are notoriously difficult and confusing. But my favourite has to be the intriguing, confusing, wonderful number system. Move over, French. Basque is in town. 91? Well, it's 4 20s and 11, obviously. 999? Well, it's 980 and 19, obviously. Georgian is a Caucasian language. Yes, that's a thing. And it's one of those languages you don't really hear about if you're not from Europe, but it's absolutely amazing. And it neither looks nor sounds like any language on earth. The Georgian alphabet looks like curls and loops straight out of a fantasy epic. Ever seen a script more beautiful than this? How do you even tell these 5 letters apart? Now, try saying this word, I dare you.
Yes, that is one single syllable. It means you peel us. And it starts with you pronouncing a bunch of consonants before you get any relief with that vowel.
Yeah, the real meaning is tell us. We can go even bigger. How's this for drama? I think you're going to agree that the biggest problem is the verbs. But first, where is Georgia? Well, here we go.
ყველაზე მეტად ალბათ რაც მიჭირს არის ის რომ ქართულად ვერ ვლაპარაკობ ისე ხშირად.
Georgian is known for its ejective consonants. What now? Well, let's just say that there are some unique sounds.
Let me present to you the one and only. In order to pronounce k, you need to click the back of your tongue up to the top of your mouth.
It's a rare one, that's for sure. You up for the challenge?
The next phrase we need to know is please. And in Georgian, you say it with 2 separate words. Tu შეიძლება. Tu შეიძლება. And the literal meaning for this phrase is if possible. As a bonus, I want to teach you how to ask for a check. ანგარიში თუ შეიძლება. ანგარიში თუ შეიძლება.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that easy, bro. By the way, they have different words meaning to have, depends if the thing you have is alive or not. But the verbs are where the real fun begins, of course. Georgian verbs are pretty daunting. We're talking layer upon layer of meaning. They have all kinds of weird things like screeves and versioners. Skrive is an entire verb phrase packed into one word, and a versioner is a verb stuffed with so much subtle information about direction, who's involved, and so on. Might want to pause to take this in. It's meant to help people speak more precisely, but confusing? Yeah, and if that's not enough, we still have polypersonal verbs. You hadn't forgotten about those, had you? They can tell you things about two different people in one verb. Take a look. Did I mention that Georgian has at least 7 noun cases to juggle, and they all have to play nicely with these fancy verbs? I mean, really, you've got to be on your toes to survive this tangled web. You can always learn the next language instead. Or can you? Navajo is an Athabascan language in the Dene family, and if you want a language with no regular verbs, well, you've come to the right place. It's the most confusing language I have ever come across. It isn't impossible to learn it, but going from English as a starting point is very, very, very hard.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, on the day not to see his sin.
The sounds of Navajo are difficult. Good luck being able to say things like this. There are pretty much no loan words from English, and have you ever heard of speaking in the fourth person? Well, Navajo has it. But first, you'll learn this incredible alphabet. You're looking at 33 consonants and 12 vowels, and I don't know how good your maths is, but that equals a fairly big number of sounds you'll never make in English. One of those sounds is a glottal stop, and I don't care if you can do this. Bottle of water. You've got nothing on Navajo. Glottal stops are everyone's accent. Vowels can be long or short, and you have to be pitch perfect with these 4 kinds of pitch. You still with me? Basic word order is subject, object, verb, but because of a thing called noun ranking, the rules are mystifying. This is animacy on steroids. Picture it. Everything in the Navajo world has a life force, and they go into a hierarchy for how alive they are, from people all the way down to rocks. So you're going to look pretty silly if you say the wolf chased the man. You have to say the wolf chased him. Man beats wolf. And what does lightning beat? How alive is a ghost? How alive is AI? Yeah, not so simple, right?
10 3 o'clock chapter meeting legend. So go tune in over there. Hurry up.
And I'll warn you now, Navajo is not just big on verbs, it's obsessed with them. They're highly complex, extremely precise, and all irregular. I mean, look at this. What do you think's missing in Navajo? Nouns. There are no adjectives and few nouns, so verbs have to describe everything. They practically have their own personality. There's even a unique thing called handling verbs. These verbs categorize objects according to shape, size, and texture, and even how they are handled.
To say, hand me a cup of coffee, you say, gohwe shanaka. Gohwe shanaka. Sha means to me. Nika means you give it. And nika specifically refers to you give that item that's in an open container.
It's quite mind-boggling, really. I'm pretty sure I would skip school on grammar day. Now, good luck learning all of this with no regular rules. And I believe that's all you can handle for one day. Would you dare try any of these confusing languages? Well, I hope you do, but if you want to learn a more realistic language in the meantime, we got you covered. Head on over to this video for some amazing fun ideas.